Mysticashes. She is basically my first mask I've ever made. And she does have a talking jaw. She's old, so it doesn't work as well as it used to. And one of the reasons it is a little bit desensitive is the fabric is attached all the way. Bottom jaw is attached to the cheeks, which is attached to the rest of the mask. That results in a loss of probably about at least 50% of your movement from when it's base to when it's finally furred.
Hello world, Mysticash is with us today, and we have Forrest. We're going to do a question and answer on how Mysticashes does her talking jaws, the foam base.
Yeah, right. Only because I get asked that how many times a day nowadays?
Pretty much.
So, what's the first step that you do when you want to make a talking jaw base?
Well, you have to start, if you're going to do a talking jaw, you have to start that and plan your mask around the talking jaw. And I've used really, really thick elastic here. I usually use the stuff that's on the back. Couldn't find it when I was first doing this one. And you measure from just under your chin, like right under it, to the top of your head near the back, so that the elastic is stretching along your natural jawline just in front of your ear, because you want to make the hinge here to be where your natural jaw would be. This is because I'm doing a half mask. It's not something you would normally put in a talking jaw. Yeah. And the elastic does have to be tight on your head, so this isn't, it's not something that's really compatible with a lot of bucket style heads.
Okay, so you would use a balaclava base for this kind of mask?
Yes. Yes, I would. There's some benefits to the balaclava bases. They tend to be a bit cooler because there's less foam, and you can do the talking jaw.
So, is doing a talking jaw for, like, a canine character different than doing one for, like, say, a deer character?
Well, it's not that it's necessarily different. The biggest issue is the weight of your muzzle. Because if you have a really long muzzle, then the talking jaw can hang open once you start putting fur on it because it gets heavy. Or if you don't want that to happen, but you really do want a good talking jaw, you need to put a better support in and put the elastic over the support instead of on the chin. That is how Dusk, our good friend here, is done. He has a solid thick foam base instead of the soft foam, and the elastic goes over it to give it better support to keep it up. And it is tight to the face, which means his talking jaw does really well. If it's not super tight to your head, then the talking jaw will only really work when you open your mouth really wide. It's not as sensitive as you can get with a resin hinge spring system.
Okay. So I see you've used elastic here. Is there any particular brand of elastic that you prefer?
No, it's just basically just the stuff you get at like Walmart. It's not that big of a deal. I wouldn't suggest going any smaller than this. This works, but it's a little bit chunky. So, inch wide elastic is your best bet.
And you would recommend having one of these head things to, put it on while you're working on it, you think?
A lot of the measuring I do on my own head, because these heads are a lot smaller than my head is. But it is nice to have this to, when you're putting things and pinning things into place, like you're putting your muzzle, or when you're,
hot gluing it. Admittedly, that's what happened to this one.
Yeah, this is why it looks like it's been through.
It's been through the war once or twice.
Yeah. High temp guns are nice. There are some upsides and downsides to doing a foam-based talking jaw. Mostly it's cheap and it's not difficult to do once you mess around with it a bit. It takes a little fiddling and a few different try and errors, but once you get it, it's cheap, it's easy to do. It isn't going to be as sensitive as a resin talking jaw base, and over time the elastic will stretch out, so it will lose a lot of sensitivity. It will definitely still work. Ashes has an old talking jaw, and it works pretty good still, even though it could use to be retightened.
If you have started a mask already that you didn't plan a talking jaw into, but you wanted to change it, like mid-mask, to make a talking jaw, what would be your best suggestion for doing that?
Well, it would depend on what type of mask you're making. I mean, there's so many different ways to make them. But basically, to do that, you would have to make this. You'd have to, this elastic base, you would have to put it on the inside of your mask, and you'd have to make sure that your bottom jaw is completely detached from the rest of the mask. The less stuff that's attached to your bottom jaw, the better it's going to move. So Dusk is another example of a talking jaw. His is new, so it works really good. And I didn't lose a lot of movement in his because his bottom jaw is completely separate from the rest of the mask. Such as, tip your head up please, there we go. In here, it's separate. See, I can stick my finger right in there. And in here he has his elastic that comes down over a solid, much thicker foam base that gives this whole jaw the support it needs to be able to, well, hold itself up. It is very tight. It comes up to the back of his head. He has a couple different lines in here. And the joint here is about here. And none of the cheek is glued onto that elastic at all, so that it has full movement. Because if you glue it on there, you lose all of the stretch. But it works pretty good. You're not going to get a perfect voice sync on a foam base talking jaw. It's just, it doesn't happen. You get a little bit of movement, but most of it is you opening your mouth quite wide. If you want a perfectly synced, a voice synced talking jaw, your best bet would be to go with a resin hinge spring system, or, I mean, 3D printed is now an option nowadays.
Enunciate if you want to talk on a phone one. You must enunciate.
Yes, that's true. And resin, you can get resin bases relatively cheap, and you can take a base that's very simple, like a K9 base, add your foam on top of it, and make something completely different. So it is an option if you really do want that voice perfect sync. They are a little bit fragile. The benefit of a foam base is, well, it's squishy. Other than that, I think that's about the basics. So, Mystic's done talking now. She don't like talking. You have anything you need to say?
This one is Mystic, steampunk version. She's very shy. Wanted to introduce her as well so that you guys could meet Mystic and Ashes both in the same video. We will do an update video when Mystic is actually done with fur. Hope you all enjoy the video. Have a good one. Until next time, bye.